Hello, this is Topher James, and today we are going to talk about the club that I have a love hate relationship with. It is the lob wedge. Specifically, the range of the lob wedge, depending on which one you have. So I have. This is. Okay, so this is a 58 degree. Its range in the game is 85 to 95 yards, and then there's a 60 degree that is 75 to 85 yards. So if you think about it, I should be able to hit this club 90 yards. But in fact, when I play, anytime this, anytime I have to take a shot between 40 to 80 yards, I am the most uncomfortable because I'm very inaccurate with the distance and even the line. So if I were to take a normal swing, and I actually have the length of this down pretty far. So as you can see, zero power assistance, spin bias, direction, and apparently I have this open a little bit. Did not know that. Okay, so I have this set to about 20. Okay, we're just going to watch me mess with this. Okay, we'll go with 24. And normally because I want to be comfortable with my green side. So if I wanted to be able to hit this 90 yards, I'm going to take what I think is a good swing. So a couple of things to notice on that. It went 70 yards. So that is nowhere near the designated 90 yards. Also, too, if you pay attention or if you rewind and hear that little thud of a swing, opposed to what I would want to hear, I can do it with my gap wedge because I have power assistance on it. So you really hear the actual, quality, the quality shot on that one. So my first question is with my lob wedge. On an average swing, just normal, how far can I hit it? 70 yards. Okay. So how do I get it to 90 yards? So a couple of things I'm going to try. I really want to get that sound for a quality hit. I'm going to play it back in my stance. Because when I hit that, I was pretty up and down. But with a lob wedge, you definitely want to play it back. So I'm going to dig into this and try to, be like I can actually hit a divot and see if I can hit it 90 yards. All right, so I heard the thud and I got it to go 90 yards. So the two differences between those swings was this was average. The first one that went 70 yards, that was average and that was comfortable. And then my second one was like more quality, more aggressive, more back my stance, and I was able to get it 90 yards. So now that tells me two things. One, I can actually hit this 90 yards as designated. And two, I now have a range of 70 up and down and casual, and then 90 in the back. So when I'm thinking distance control, I want to know the range of all my clubs. I don't just say, hey, I can hit my 9-iron 150 yards. In fact, I know I can hit it from 130 to 145. So the lob wedge now, I'm going to play it more in the front of my stance so I can get a little more loft on it. I'm going to go back to that casual swing, so I'm going to expect a thud rather than a quality stroke. I want to see if this will give me like 50 yards. So it's definitely up higher. Okay. So 60 to 65 yards. So now I know I'm just going to call it 60. So I got 60, 70, 90. This is my range of my lob wedge for a full swing. So what about the 40 and the 50 yards? Well, now this all goes down to feel. When I do a 40-yard shot, I do basically a punch shot because depending on the situation, if I have a lot of green to roll out, I'm going to do like a low punch shot so I can get it to roll up. If it's if I don't have much green to work out, then I'm going to, loft it up. So it's totally situational, but it's something to be practiced because even though I know my range, obviously there's, 10 yards, 20, 40, there's differences. So if I want to do my 40, I'm going to do a very aggressive punch, chip, whatever you want to call it. So I can practice that. I can do a high flop shot. And at this point, it's just more about what it is that I'm trying to do and trying to feel the differences. I did a low punch shot, almost went 50 yards. I did a high flop shot, that's 30. So as I'm kind of gauging where my average comfortable swing is, I want to know how I can adjust for them. So if I'm here at 60 yards, I know that I can do the average swing straight up and down, and really I can take a little bit off of it. But in this situation, now this hole is pretty simple. So I could either land it short and have a downhill putt. I can be aggressive and try to put it in the hole, or I can swing what I know is 70 and go way past. So those are my options. So in this case, wouldn't mind being short. So I'm gonna lay off of it a little bit. So I laid off of it. And realistically, I mean, I didn't get the line right, but I wasn't really focused on that. I was focused more on the distance, and I'd be pretty happy with that. So my best suggestion to anyone who's practicing with their lob wedge and trying to really gauge that distance from, with your lob wedge in this case, 90 yards and under, is to try to feel what your different swings are and just make small changes from that and really do course management what's acceptable to you. Because if I did a 70-yard shot on here, just thinking, okay, I just want 70 yards. Or you can be like me and just totally mishit it. It's more of what are you comfortable missing than what you're being comfortable being accurate for. So let me try that again. So let's say I want 70 yards. Okay. Yeah. So that's close to the 70 yards. Still acceptable, but like I said, totally situational. Make sure that it's not the distance that you're going for. It's, do you want to be short? Do you want to be long? Do you want to be left? Do you want to be right? Things like that. So now if we go into the rough, you know what? I'm actually going to hit to that patch over there. Okay. So normally with golf clubs, there's that 10-yard difference, but I don't really think there's much of a difference with the lob wedge. Again, it's purely how you hit it. It's situational. There's still going to be some spin out of the rough, maybe not as much if you do get a lot of spin usually. So still at 6 yards, and I'm going to play just normal. I'm not going to think much else to it other than the fact that I want to be short. I want to be in line. It is in the rough, so I just have this feeling it's going to pull a little bit. Plus, my club is short, so naturally I'm going to come over the top. So I'm going to aim right. So just like in real life, you come out of the rough, and unless you really hit steep at it, there's not going to be much spin. If I wanted to hit it higher, still play with my ranges, 70, 90, 50. But out of the rough, you have that rollout. Now, lastly, what do you do if you're in the sand? Ideally, I would never put myself in this situation. This hole, for example, hole 12, the par 4 at Sawgrass, I would always hit a 3-wood on here, unless the pin is the medium pins, and then I would just, I'd rather hit in a fairway or miss it right into the rough than have to hit a 40 to 60 yard sand wedge. So let's assume there's going to be 10 yards. Actually, let's just assume we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So middle stance from the fairway, 70 yards. Middle stance from, actually, we'll call it 60 because that's what I was doing. Middle stance from the rough was 60 with some rollout. So just out of curiosity, let's see what happens with that same swing from the sand. Now it is going to be from the sand. I'm coming over the top. I'm going to pull it. It does seem like I swung a little bit harder on that one, so we're not going to count that. For that slow swing, that really just took off out of the sand. I don't feel like I'm swinging hard. Anyone else notice that was my sand wedge? It's also smart to maybe change the colors of your wedges. Where I have my gap, my sand, and my lob wedge. I mean, my lob wedge is looking the same as my sand wedge. Naturally, when you go in the sand, it will default to the sand wedge. So those last two, just ignore them because, yeah, that was bad. Okay, so here we go. Middle stance, 60 yards, lob wedge from the sand. All right. So 33 yards. So that basically cut it in half. So if I can duplicate that swing and still get 30 yards, I swung a little bit faster on that one, but it's still a huge cutoff. So what am I going to do in this situation where I have, if I have to do this during round? Well, I know that it's going to cut it in half from the sand. So I'm going to play it back in my stance. I'm going to assume the 90-yard swing, realistically probably 80. We're just going to play around with it. I'm going to assume back in the stance and harder swing will get at the 60 yards. How wrong was I? Now, the reason why that's happening is because the sand, it all depends on how steep you hit into the ball. And especially when you're hitting out of all of them, but there's different levels in my mind. So deep is going to be quality, but the higher you go where you kind of top it, the less of a, the less strength, the less power you'll get. So I'm going to really dig into this one. And it still rolled out. See? So my best suggestion when you're 40 to 60 yards out is just and you really need to hit it, because that was a full swing, almost 60 yards, cuts it down by 20 to 30 yards. Play back in your stance and really dig deep into it. Almost like in real life, you would try to chunk the hell out of it. I'm starting to think I might not release this video because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay. So from 60 yards out of the sand, it's going to be more... How should I do this? Okay. So from 60 yards out of the sand, what I'm thinking right now is I'm going to draw back. So if you've seen my webcam video, you notice that I don't really draw back further. But I'm almost going to treat this like a power meter because the game likes to calculate power. And so I think that if I play back my stance, I really dig into this and I reach it back, I can get more power out of it. Which isn't that bad. I mean, it's on the green. Because if I were to do the shot out of the fairway, and what I would think would be 50 yards out of the fairway just gets cut in half. So my biggest suggestion right now is a large backswing. Really dig down and get into it. And just blast it out. I wonder if my full swing from here is 60 yards. No, maybe it's 50. Well, and honestly, it comes back to I don't put myself in this situation. If I find myself in this situation out of the sand, it's very rarely that I ever have a 40 to 60 yard shot from the sand or even a 30 to 40 yard because it's just not worth the trouble. I'd rather play over there. And there really isn't a clear answer to fairway bunkers other than the fact that you just have to see what your feel is. And in this case, I don't have much feel, I'll be honest. From 30 to 60 yards out of the bunker, if I were playing this hole and I drove it right here and I was 60 yards away, it would come down to course management. Right now, I'm thinking par. I'm not thinking birdie. I'm going to just hit it anywhere in this zone. I'm going to give it a good whack because in my mind, hitting out of sand will slow it down. And I just want par. That's exactly how I would play it. So I took a good swing at it, and I'm perfectly happy with that. That's what I would do in that situation. Yeah. There's a lot of people that ask about lob wedges from the fairway bunkers. A lot of people, I would assume, don't like it. I personally hate it, and I will go out of my way to make sure I'm not in that situation. And like I just showed you, if you are in that situation, just take it with a grain of salt, do the best you can, and move on and forget about it. That's my best suggestion. And you know what? I'm not going to edit this video because everyone will see that even I struggle with this. And hopefully, you can learn from my mistakes. But at the same time, I know a lot of people have questions. Just practice, get the feel, practice an average swing, practice a hard swing, practice it back in your stance, practice it forward in your stance, and just use good course management. If you are happier with a full swing from 90 yards to 100, 110, then go for that. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you always have to hit driver. And good luck. That's all I have to say. Appreciate everyone who's watching this video. It's very raw, but yeah, I don't like the lob wedge from, I'll say 30 to 90 yards. Absolutely hate it.